Good morning. Thank you for coming to this meeting just before the summer break. This is the meeting of the Bills Committee on Employment Amendment Bill 2018. This is our second meeting. Today, we are here to deal with draft amendments proposed by 6 members. Can I first invite the administration to join us?
Good
morning, the government team. We are here to deal with amendments proposed by members. That's the primary purpose of this meeting. And before we go to the amendments, the legal advisor would first like to raise a few points with the administration. And if I may remind members, the administration has given a written response to the proposed amendments. The response is tabled for your information, so please refer to the tabled document. Now, can I invite the legal advisor to first raise a few points with the administration? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may just inform members that as we studied the bill, we found an inconsistency between the English and Chinese version. That's clause 3 of the bill. Amendment to section 15E2 B1. As you can see in the English version, it says before the commencement date of section 3(1) of the Employment Ordinance. But in the Chinese version, actually, there is no reference to section 3(1) in the Chinese version. So I would like to ask the administration what the administration is going to do about this inconsistency between the English and the Chinese versions. Assistant Commissioner, thank you for raising this point. We will deal with it. Actually, how we're going to amend the clause, we need to discuss further with the Department of Justice, but definitely we will deal with it. Well, I believe it's just a typographical error. It's a technical issue, really. Yes, very much it's a technical point. Yes, please. So I'm sure you will make amendments. It's not a major issue. I'm sure you've already spotted the problem as well. So, yes. Mr. Chairman, I have another question, please. Yes, please continue. Does it mean the administration will be moving amendment to correct this issue? Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda. Draft amendments proposed by members. At the meeting on the 17th of July, the Bills Committee has completed the clause-by-clause scrutiny of the bill. And with members' agreement, we have scheduled this meeting for us to consider the draft amendments to the bill. So far, the Secretariat has received draft amendments from 6 members. And in the order of receipt of the draft amendments, the administration has prepared the relevant documents are from Mr. Hon HO Kai-ming, Mr. LEUNG Yiu-chung, Dr Fernando CHEUNG, Mr. Gary FAN, Mr. Ted Hui, and Dr Helena Wong. So, amendments from 6 members. The administration's response is tabled today for your information because we have a tight schedule. Sorry, so we cannot forward the paper to you beforehand. On the amendments by the 6 members, I will invite each of them to explain their amendments first. So we go by the same order. First, can I invite Mr. Ho Kai-ming to speak, to be followed by Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Then, Mr. Gary FAN. Oh, Fernando CHEUNG. Oh, sorry, my apology. So, Mr. Leung Yiu-chung to be followed by Dr. Fernando CHEUNG first. Mr. Ho Kai-ming, please. There's no time limit, but please watch the time in any case. 5 days actually are not the ultimate goal of the FTU. We want it to be 7 days minimum eventually. But for parents who are going to have a baby soon, we would like them to have an extended paternity leave as soon as possible. That's why we have moved this amendment for the so that further amendments will be included in the bill. That means, in accordance with the legislation, the government must conduct review regularly. And if we find that 5 days of paternity leave would have little impact on the community, then the government should review it and make it 7 days. Now, but the only response we got from the administration is that they will review as necessary. But the first time when we had paternity leave of 3 days, the government promised to conduct a review after 1 year, and this time I won't even give that undertaking, and that's why we find it most disappointing. So that's why we're moving this amendment. So now, according to the government, the paternity leave, the new paternity leave will come in force after Chinese New Year probably. But we want men to be able to help their wives and their wives give birth, so we want this to happen as soon as possible. Now, perhaps the administration will respond in one go after all 6 members have spoken. Next, Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I don't quite agree with what Mr. Ho Kai-ming said just now. In the past, with many amendments to the employment ordinance, the government will always say there will be review from time to time, but then we may wait 10 years and there's still no change. For example, the maternity leave is one example. Mr. Leung, please focus on your amendments today. Yes, I'm about to finish. So it's not possible for us to wait for the government to conduct review and see progress. As I mentioned, maternity leave is example. Now, it was 10 weeks before, 4 weeks before the delivery, and 6 weeks after, and now it's become 10 weeks any time. So if we want to wait for review from government, there's a slim chance. Now, the government said it would review the arrangement from time to time, but that's just in response to us. I don't think it means it. So even with Mr. Ho Kai-ming's amendment, I don't see any hope. That's why I'm not proposing to change it from 3 days to 7 days instead of 3 days to 5 days. 7 days is at maximum. If the employee thinks 3 days is enough, he can just take 3 days. If 5 days is enough, he can just take 5 days of leave. Now, and I'm not moving an amendment to change the pay from 4/5 to full pay. Now, if an employee takes 7 days, that means 2 days more than 5 days. That means the employee has to pay for that as well, because he will receive 1/5 less of salary for 2 days. So it won't have much impact on the employee. Of course, there's going to be an impact, but would it be really huge? I wonder. And then we just talk about maybe 1 or 2 employees in the company. And how many times would the same employee enjoy the paternity leave benefit? So the chance is again slim. So if we don't change it from 3 days to 7 days in one go this time, I think there will be little chance for us to do so in future. That's why I'm moving the amendment to change it to 7 days. Next, Dr. Fernando CHEUNG. My amendment is the same as similar to that of Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. I'm just making it even simpler, just to change the numeral from 5 to 7. And as Mr. Leung Yiu-chung said, I also have not moved any amendment to the pay ratio. Now, the government estimates that by increasing the payout from 3 days to 5 days is about 1 of 10,000 of pay expenditure, and I'm sure that's an overestimation. So, well, my amendment is Mr. Leung Yiu-chung's amendment. We're just increasing the expenditure by 1 out of 10,000th. So it's not much. And I think we should further relax the arrangement further soon. If you look around the advanced economies in the world, the period is much longer than 7 days that I'm proposing. Singapore is 2 weeks of paid paternity leave. And in many other places around the world, there's also family leave. So there will be flexibility for the mother or father. But in Hong Kong, we don't have this flexibility. Now, the ultimate goal is to have a paternity leave of 2 weeks. 1 week is to be paid by the government. As for maternity leave, we would like that to be increased to 14 weeks as soon as possible. And that extra 4 weeks will be paid for by the government. That means for the mother and father, that's 1 week where there's flexibility for them to use the leave alternately. So it's for more flexible arrangement. That's the global trend. Well, that's not part of your amendments. No, it's not yet. I'm just saying that's the vision and the ultimate goal we should work for. Next, Mr. Gary FAN. I'm moving two amendments, Mr. Chairman. One is to change the statutory paternity leave from 3 days to 7 days, and the other is for the pay. There should be full pay for paternity leave. Now, let me explain briefly why I'm proposing these amendments. In 2017, the Labour Department conducted a survey, a questionnaire survey on PL. More than 50% of the surveyed employees believed PL should be at least 7 days. And then 66.5% of the employees taking PL would have to take additional annual leave. And the additional annual leave ranged from 1 to 15 days. More than 80% of the employees took 1 to 8 extra days of annual leave. So for the 7 days of paternity leave amendment, there is actually a need for it. Of course, in the community and among the businesses, they say that if we have 7 days of PL, would it create difficulties to SMEs? But actually, there is no justification for that. Now, we just increased the PL by 2 more days. The cost involved is minimal. The government has estimated that for 3 to 5 days of paternity leave, the annual cost issue is just 0.02% to 0.04%. That's why Dr. Law Chi Kwong mentioned that the increase of PL on the impact of PL increase on the businesses is minimal and negligible, actually. And also, there's a low fertility rate in Hong Kong in any case, so few people actually will make use of the PL. Now, the government started introducing 5 days of PL, and then by 2014 March, we find that only 5,504 government employees, 5,524 employees took the PL. And that's a small number compared to the 160,000 strong civil service. And then if we can't pay if we keep the pay at 4/5, then each year the cost is between $80 million plus to about $160 million. So with my amendment, the increase is just $137 million. It will be increased from $137 million to $242 million. The government sits on a huge fiscal reserve, so government could actually should pay for the employees, and because the amount is insignificant. So we believe these measures would be part of family-friendly employment practices, and the amendment, the legal legislative amendment, should be on a par with the benefits of civil servants. We shouldn't just favor the businesses. Instead, we should offer more protection to employees. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Mr. Ted Hui and Dr. Helen Wong, and they are not present here today. May I now ask whether there are any members who have been delegated with the authority to move those amendments on their behalf? If not, I will now invite the Bureau to give a global response to the 6 proposed amendments. Thank you, Chairman, and I'd like to thank also members for their suggestions. We've heard the concerns expressed by members. What we want to say is that the bill this time is the result of a review. In the course of the review, we heard different views, and regarding the number of days of paternity leave, we've taken in consideration the affordability of the employers, and also whether the ability to arrange for leave for their employees. And this proposal has been deliberated by employers and employees, and the consensus arrived at it's really not an easy one, and that's why we would stand by and respect that decision. Now, in fact, on the subject of paternity leave pay, when the ordinance was enacted in 2014, we already had a very detailed discussion before coming to the decision. And in the present bill, our simple objective is simply to increase the number of days of paternity leave from 3 to 5 days, and that's not part of the review of the paternity leave. As the Secretary said last time, we would from time to time consider the economic situation and the situation of the employees, and consider the issue. So we don't need to therefore need to amend the ordinance to do that. No, this is not a question for the department. Now, perhaps I think I also have a responsibility to comment on the amendments moved by members. And first of all, I'd like to, talk about the broad principles, and also comment on whether or not there are any drafting or legal issues in relation to those amendments moved by members. The first principle I'd like to say is that whether or not members are able to move these amendments, the decision of the President. The President would need to consider the objective of the bill, and also the explanatory notes of the bills and the explanation of the department, and if there's any objection, what are the grounds of such objections. And in the electrical brief, and also the electrical brief, before he would rule that the amendment is out of scope, and that such amendments will affect the objective of the bill or may have a charging effect. The amendments moved by several members are in respect of the 7 days of paternity leave. As to whether or not this would actually go beyond the objective of the bill, I think at the Bills Committee I already explained this point, and the response of the department has not said that the amendments will go beyond the object of the bill. Is it like the amendment in 2014 that such amendments have not gone beyond the object of the bill, and therefore members can consider asking the Bureau to confirm that. Regarding the amount of paternity leave pay, the response from the Bureau said that the bill does not include the method of calculation of the paternity leave. So does that mean that the department believes that any change to the amount of paternity leave will go beyond the object of the bill? And members may need to consider asking the department to clarify this point. Well, as I said at the last meeting, now in the bill, whether it's the long title or the bill itself does not touch on the question of the 4/5 of the average wage. So if we were to move any amendments, it would go beyond the object of the bill. But in the legislative brief, one can see that the administration has conducted a review, including the question of the 4/5 of the average wage. If members believe that there is a need for review, then one would need to look at the background of this proposal. And also, I think the President will also need to consider the implementation details. Lastly, the proposal to add a review mechanism. And I see two possible issues arising from this. First of all, the object of the bill. The bill and the long title does not propose to set up a review mechanism. And under the current ordinance, there is no such provision either. So if we were to propose if we were to propose an implementation details in the bill, might actually go beyond the object of the bill. And also adding a review mechanism may also give rise to another issue, and that is whether or not there will be a charging effect. And the President will have to decide whether or not this new review mechanism is a new function or responsibility, and which are not included in the bill. And whether so, I think the department has not provided a detailed explanation. For example, whether or not there will be any charging impact and how much such impact would be. So perhaps members may consider asking the department to clarify this point. Regarding the individual amendments moved by members, I will now talk. First of all, comment on Mr. Leung Yiu-chung's amendment, which is basically a drafting point. He is proposing to amend the long title and section 3(1), and in his amendment he is proposing to move 15(1), which should be 15(2) instead. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung has not provided a bilingual version for his amendment, so I don't know whether there's any differences between the Chinese and English version of his amendments. Regarding Mr. Chung's amendment, the Chinese and English version are all right, but I think he should spell out in greater detail, regarding how section 1 is to be amended. Mr. Gary Fan's amendment. Now, first of all, Mr. Fan has not made a consequential amendment to the long title. If you're going to amend the number of days from 5 to 7 days, you will also need to amend the long title, and Mr. Fan has not done that. And also, he should be talking about amendment to 3(b)(1) and not 3(b)(3). Mr. Gary Fan would like to add 3(b) so that the paternity leave will be equal to the full average wage. Regarding the amount of paternity leave pay, there is a particular provision which is section 15I. If members wish to amend the amount of paternity leave pay, one would need to amend 15I. Like Mr. Ted Hui said, he is moving a similar amendment, and that's why he has to add a new section to amend 15I. If you do not make an amendment in that manner, that Mr. Gary FAN's amendment to amend 3 Section B will clash with the ordinance, when we don't know which one we should follow. Mr. FAN has not provided an English version to his amendment, so I don't know whether the two versions would tally. Regarding Mr. Ho Kai-ming's amendment, again, there are certain textual issues. Now, in Clause 3, which is now amended to as Section 15, and there's also a discrepancy between the English and Chinese versions. In the Chinese version, there's a proposal to amend subsection 2, but that is not provided for in the English version. The other question is whether or not there is a charging effect, and also the question relating to the scope. In Section 6, or Clause 6 rather, it said the Secretary may, from time to time, review, but so the question is whether or not the Secretary may review that or must review that. So there may be a contradiction between subsection 6 and 7. Mr. Ho's amendment suggests that the review should be an annual review. The question is how there should be a review from time to time within a year, and that there must be a review. So there might be a discrepancy here. Ms. Ho Kai-ming just now pointed out that the purpose of his amendment is that through this review we can increase the number of paternity leave days to 7 days. If the Bills Committee were to consider these amendments, members may consider this. That is, if the Bills Committee were to move an amendment to increase the number of paternity leave days from 5 to 7 days, would there be any duplication among the amendments moved by members, because it's already provided in Mr. Ho Kai-ming's amendment? I'd like to thank the legal advisor for his detailed, analysis of the amendments moved by members. He's also given us his advice. Does the Bureau have any response to that? If not, then we will have to deal with these amendments. So these are only technical in nature. Would you like them to give a technical response? Dr. Cheung, I think just now the legal advisor has, put it very well. There are several points which the Bureau has not clarified, and these are not just technical issues, because they involve whether or not these amendments could be moved.
Now, if you read the documents of the administration, the administration is not saying that the amendments are against the long title. You don't see that in writing, right? Did you see it? No. If it's not there, that means it's not there. But can we ask them to clarify whether there's any charging effect? Because this might contravene Article 74 of the Basic Law, so we need the administration to make that clear. Administration, can you clarify, please? Now, let me give a brief response, Mr. Chairman, as to whether members' amendments are within or outside the scope of the bill. Well, that's a complex issue, as the legal advisor has explained. We've only received the amendments in the past 2 or 3 days. We've looked at the amendments, but we believe there's need for further consideration. So our response is more about principles. So whether the amendments are outside or inside the scope of the bill, we still need to talk to the Department of Justice. As for whether there's charging effect, again, we need to look into that further, because it's not possible for us to do the calculation and estimation in such a short period of time. Now, in past rulings of the President, we could see that even though there may be a charging effect, it depends on the degree or the level of the charging effect. That matters too. So that's why we're not able to give a response in such a short time. Now, if I may remind members that in any case, the bill will resume a second reading debate at the council meeting, and the amendments, now as to whether the amendments have anything to do, are in conflict with the long title, or whether the charging effect, these are all relevant factors. At the end of the day, it's for the President to rule on the amendments. And when the bill resumes the second reading debate, the administration could also give its views on our amendments. That is, whether the amendments are in conflict in any way. But anyway, up to this moment, I did not see any objection from the administration from their written response, and I don't see it. So as the chairman of the Bills Committee, then I agree that we should proceed to consider your amendments. Okay, shall we do that now? That is whether the Bills Committee will take up these amendments. So the amendments will be proposed by the Bills Committee in accordance with paragraph 2.21 and 2.22 of the handbook of the chairman of the Bills Committee. If the administration does not agree to some of the amendments, then these amendments must be agreed to by more than half of the members of the Bills Committee, and then the Bills Committee chairman will move the amendments on behalf of the Bills Committee. There are 6 amendments. Well, I can group them into 4 categories. The first one is the amendment of Mr. Ho Kai-ming about the government being required to review the arrangement. But of course, your ultimate goal of 7 days is not, it cannot be seen in your amendment, although you mentioned that. So that's the first group of amendments. The second group of amendments has to do with the number of PL days. The government is proposing to increase it from 3 to 5 days, but the amendments are to increase it from 3 to 7 days. The third group of amendments is about the pay level. Paternity leave pay is 4/5 of the full salary, and now there are amendments to make it the full pay. The fourth group of amendment, that's rather unique and special. That's the one moved by Dr. Hon LEUNG Yiu-chung. That is, after 1 year of commencement of the amendment ordinance, then the PL will become 7 days. Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are 2 purposes to Dr. Hon LEUNG Yiu-chung's amendment. That is, after the amendment ordinance commences 1 year after that, the PL would become 7 days, and also the PL pay would become full salary. But now on the amendments moved by Dr. Hon LEUNG Yiu-chung, the problem is, again, she's not amending the long title because her amendments will require amendment to the long title. If the Bills Committee accepts to increase PL to 7 days, then Dr. Hon LEUNG Yiu-chung's amendment will again clash with other amendments because she's saying that PL should be increased to 7 days after 1 year. Also, pay would be full pay after 1 year. So, well, let's assume Dr. Hon LEUNG Yiu-chung's amendments are passed, and that will clash with other amendments. So would she move the amendment, or do we have to go back to the Bills Committee for consideration, or the Secretariat to deal with it? Well, let me tell you how we should deal with it in accordance with the handbook of the for chairman of those committees. First, I will deal with Mr. Leung Yiu-chung's, Dr. Fernando CHEUNG's, Mr. Gary FAN's, and Mr. Ted Hoi's amendments because their amendments are similar. So it's about changing the length of the PL from 5 days to 7 days. The second issue is about changing the pay level from 4/5 to 100%. So we will deal with these amendments first. If these amendments are passed, then Mr. Ho Kai-ming's and Dr. Helena Wong's amendments will not be dealt with. You know, because the other amendments would be better changes than the changes proposed by Mr. Ho Kai-ming, Dr. Helena Wong. So what's the point of dealing with those other amendments? But if the other amendments are not passed, then we will first deal with Mr. Ho Kai-ming's amendments and then Dr. Helena Wong's amendments. Mr. Kenneth Leung, can I clarify this? For members who move amendments, they have a choice that they don't want the Bills Committee to move the amendments on their behalf. In that case, you don't need to deal with these inconsistencies, right? Yes, but still we need to discuss it first. Because I can't read their minds. I don't know what they think. Now, even if the Bills Committee does not agree to move the amendments on their behalf, of course, as members, they have the right to move these amendments. So your question is entirely valid, but actually is a non-question. Mr. Ho Kai-ming, now I don't agree with your understanding. Now, yes, the amendments are about changing the PL to 7 days, but my amendment is about a review, and even if the PL is 7 days, it cannot satisfy the aim of my amendment, because then we could change the PL to 10 days. So logically, I don't think it's right. I'm asking for a review mechanism, and it's shouldn't be the case that because the amendments of 7 days are passed, and then my amendments cannot be moved. Mr. Ho Kai-ming, yes, I accept your point. So for your amendments and Dr. Helena Wong's ones, I will deal with them separately. That is, if we pass the amendments on the length of PL and the PL pay level, then we will still deal with your amendments. Perhaps compared to Dr. Wong's amendment, which is about making the change after a year, if the amendments are passed now, then her amendments need not be considered, but yours would be a different case. Okay? Next step. Going by Mr. Kenneth Leung's view, for members who've proposed amendments, can you now indicate whether you would like the Bills Committee to take up your amendments and move committee stage amendments on your behalf? I'll ask each of you then. First, present here, Mr. Ho Kai-ming. Would you like the Bills Committee to decide to move the amendments in the name of the Bills Committee? Well, I'm a new member. I don't quite follow. So are we considering whether the Bills Committee will move my amendments? If that suggestion is voted down, then I will move my own amendments, right? So in that case, let's vote on it, whether the Bills Committee would like to move the amendments on my behalf. But first of all, is whether you want the Bills Committee to do that. If you don't want to do that, then we don't need to consider it. Yes, I'm happy for the Bills Committee to move the amendment. You just want me to tell you I do, right? Next, Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Yes, if the Bills Committee would take up my amendment, I will leave it to the Bills Committee. But if the Bills Committee won't agree to the amendment, I'll move it myself. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG, same for me. Mr. Gary FAN, similar, same for me. In that case, let's move on to the next step. Mr. Kenneth Leung, now we will consider whether the Bills Committee will take up those amendments. I think you've all stated your case clearly, so let's go straight to voting to make things efficient, okay? Now, if the Bills Committee is to move the amendments, that means we have to group together similar amendments proposed by the 6 members. And then the legal advisor will then draft the amendments for members' consideration. Now, just now he gave views on the technical aspects of the amendments, so therefore, on that basis, he will come up with some better version of the draft amendment. Of course, what's important is that we take into account the purposes of the amendments. Okay, shall we do that? So we'll therefore not look at the amendments proposed by members, but rather individual members. Rather, we'll look at first the amendment to change the PL period from 5 to 7 days. Let's consider this first. Do we want the Bills Committee to move this amendment? Can we have a show of hands, please? Those in favor, hands up. That is, change PL from 5 to 7 days. And the Bills Committee will move this amendment on behalf of members. Please take down the names of members. Not to claim a division, by ringing a division bell, but just to jot down members' names by a show of hands. Okay, then in that case we should claim division by ringing a division bell. 5 minutes then. Sorry, speaker's not coming through. So the Bills Committee will move the amendment. The Secretary will work out a draft. So does it mean that the Secretary will redo the amendment, or will you ask Dr. Hon Wong to sort out the amendment before the Secretary will take it up? This is a question on procedure.
You asked several questions. If the Bills Committee agreed that the number of PL leave days should be increased from 5 to 7, and that the pay should be full pay, then Dr. Helena Wong's amendment will vanish automatically. That's one option. If we do not agree to amend the number of days from 5 to 7 and changing the 4/5 to full pay, then Dr. Wong will have to move her own amendment. And then it would have nothing to do with the Bills Committee. We have no obligation to tidy up her amendment. As to whether or not she's going to move the same amendment for the resumption of the second debate, that's her business. If we were to endorse the amendment proposed by Helena Wong, obviously there is a technical, clash there. Thank you, Chairman. To answer Mr. Yiu's question, the clash that I talked about means that Dr. Wong's amendment clashes with the amendments moved by other members. For the other members, the proposal is to change the number of PL days from 5 to 7. Dr. Wong is proposing that the number of PL days should be changed to 7 days after a year. So if members' amendment were approved today, and we also approve Dr. Wong's amendment, there might be a clash. Same for the changing the 4/5 to full pay. If we also approve Dr. Wong's proposal, then that might clash with the amendment moved by other members. So the chairman is proposing that if we already have a consensus, then Dr. Wong may have to move her own amendment. There's one more question. What happens if it clashes with the long title of the bill? How should we deal with that? As of now, I don't think the government has such a view. The bill, no one in this committee also proposes that there is a clash with the long title. And neither has it been raised, during our deliberation earlier. Legal advisor. Now, first of all, whether there's a clash with the long title and the scope or the object, it would depend on the government's, intention. That is, whether the government has any objection. As I said, the 2014 bill also contains certain amendments which the department did not object to, and the president therefore did not make any, ruling. So first of all, it depends on the preference of the government. If the government should object, then whether or not these amendments could be moved and whether or not exceeds the object of the bill, that would be for the president to decide. Mr. Leung Kai-chung, I think, did you put up your hand? Well, Chairman, I think you've already answered my question. Thank you. After the bell, it's been rung for 5 minutes, we shall vote on these amendments. Do we have a button here? So we will put the amendments, to the vote, and then I'll read out the names of those members who vote in favor or against the motions and those who abstain. All right, it is now time. So, have you finished, members? All those in favor of those who are in favor of the bills committed to move the amendment that the PL day should be amended from 5 to 7 days. Those in favor, please put up your hands. We have Mr. Hon Fernando CHEUNG, Kenneth Leung, Gary FAN, and Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Those who are against the motion. Dr. Hon Pan, Ho Kai-ming, Elizabeth Kwok, Mr. Luk Chun Hong, Mr. Wai Kang, Mr. Yu Si Wing, Mr. Chen Kwok Kwan, Mr. Wong Kok Kyun, and Mr. Shiu Ka Fai, and Holden Chow. All right. Abstention? We have no abstention. So we have 5 in favor, 10 against. So the motion is not carried. So members who would like to move the motion, you have to do it yourselves. The next motion is whether members agreed that the Bills Committee should move the amendment in respect of amending the PL leave pay from 4/5 to full pay. Those in favor? Again, the same 5 members, Mr. Yip Kin-yuen, Fernando CHEUNG, Kenneth Leung, Gary FAN, and Leung Yiu-chung. Those against? Again, the same 10 members. Hon Xiu-ping, Hon Kai-ming, Elizabeth Kwok, Luk Chung Hong, Ko Ka-keung, Yu Si-wing, Kwok Wai-keung, Yu Si-wing, Jiang Kok-kwan, Wong Kok-kin, Holden Chow, and Chiu Ka-fai. So now that the 2 motions have been defeated, and since Dr. Wong, Helena Wong is not present, we will not be able to deal with a motions. As for Mr. Ho Kai-ming, I think we now have to decide whether the Bills Committee will move Mr. Ho's motion on his behalf during the committee stage. Those in favor? So I think I'll need to read out the names of Kwok Wai-keung, Luk Chung Hong, Wong Kok-kin, Ho Kai-ming, Fernando CHEUNG, Gary FAN, and Leung Yiu-chung, and Mr. Yip Kin-yuen. Those against? Hon Xiu-ping, Elizabeth Kwok, Yu Si-wing, Jiang Kok-kwan, Holden Chow, and Chiu Ka-fai. Abstention? We have 1 abstention, Mr. Kenneth Leung. How many abstentions? 1. 8 for, 6 against, and 1 abstention. So in other words, 8 versus 7. Chairman, Dr. Poon. Of course, well, the legal advisor already explained that there is a clash between these amendments. How can we ensure that there's no clash? Is it for the legal advisor to deal with this, or should Mr. Ho Kai-ming deal with it himself? Legal advisor. If the Bills Committee were to move this motion, then we may need to discuss with Mr. Ho Kai-ming as to how we should tidy up his amendment. And then we may need permission from the President to see whether we need to come back and let the committee go through it once again. The Bills Committee or the chairman may consider whether we need to discuss this. I think there is a clash between Mr. Ho Kai-ming's amendment and the others. So the Bill Committee would have to decide whether or not we should have a review from time to time, or that there should be an annual review. Because, I mean, as of now, we don't have a clear decision. So it's difficult for us to deal with that amendment. I would suggest that Mr. Ho Kai-ming will move the amendment himself. I think he can work out, with the legal advisor, about the details. Well, I think that would be against the decision of the Bills Committee just now, because 8 members are in favor of the Bills Committee moving Mr. Ho's amendment on his behalf. So the amendment will now be moved by the Bills Committee, but we have to do so to ensure that the amendment moved by Mr. Ho is in compliance with the all the relevant rules. Our legal advisor therefore will work out with Mr. Ho Kai-ming and come up with the amendment. And that amendment I will circulate to members. Of course, that amendment will be made with the cooperation of Mr. Ho and the Secretariat. As to whether the full council will approve it or not is something else. Chairman, I supported the motion that the Bills Committee should move Mr. Ho's amendment on its behalf, because I heard Mr. Ho stating clearly that the government must carry out a review and not may, from time to time, review the number of days. But as you heard just now, both words appear in the bill. But I think Mr. Ho's intention is that the government, the Secretary, must review this. So I think we should ensure that the amendment is consistent with Mr. Ho's intention. I think the legal advisor will certainly, note that, and the draft will still be circulated to members for scrutiny. Mr. Yiu-chung, while all of us are present, I think there are still some areas which are not very clear. If you propose that they should go back and tidy up the the wording and come back to us again, why don't we ask Mr. Ho to do it right now, and then we can take another vote today, rather than having to come back later on and deal with it.
我冇投票，而家我發。咁你反應都咁慢慢加熱。頭先應該講清楚，係啊，如果再剩個，好啦，可以啦，而家又出現咗新問題。
We have a new issue now. The Secretary just reminded me that even though I did not cast my vote just now, but as a chairman, I'm also, a member of the Bills Committee. So I think, therefore, my vote I think it should be. So in that case, it would mean that I have abstained from the voting just now. So we now have a tie, 8 votes against 8 votes. I am one of the members present, but my vote should count as an abstention. Mr. Leung, Chairman. I think you're the one of the members present, so your conclusion was correct, but you don't need to abstain. It simply means that you did not cast your votes. The conclusion is still that we have 8 votes for and 8 votes against. So the Secretary just reminded, the clerk just reminded me that okay. So I hope members will, take heed of what the legal advisor has reminded us. So during the resumption of the second debate, you can move your amendment. So I'd like to thank you. So some technical issues have been raised, and the points raised by our legal advisor. Will there be any CSAs? We will draft the CSAs and then we will circulate them to the Bills Committee. Regarding the amendments moved by members, we will prepare a more detailed response. Our response table today is a very brief response due to the time constraint. Once we receive the papers from the Bureau, we will circulate them to members. I would also, inform members of the date for the resumption of the second debate. For the Bills Committee to report to the House, that would be after the summer recess, that is the 5th of October. Advance notice for CSA, the deadline is the 13th of October 2018. Date for the resumption of the second debate in the full council would be the 24th of October 2018. Is that clear? Now, personally, I hope that the bill, whether it's the bill proposed by the administration or the bill as amended by members, could be approved as soon as possible, so that those who are eligible to paternity leave entitlements will benefit. Is there anything else? Please wait.
好少發生我哋頭先嗰啲情況。好啊，抱歉，暫停5分鐘，俾我。
Shall we take a short break for 5 minutes so that we can deal with the issue of whether we're the majority votes just now? We'll break for 5 minutes.